So this week we had 2 articles and 2 videos. First I'm going to hit on the videos and then I'll move on to the articles. The first video talks about lessons from informal economy and then the power of informal economy. So some lessons we can take away from an informal economy is that informal and formal economy are go hand in hand and are kind of hard to define in a sense that they have to coexist and cooperate with one another. And next, the resilience and reinvention that go with informal economy are so high. Informal economies have to be resilient and have to reinvent certain aspects because it's not a formal entity, so they have to make their own rules, regulations, not necessarily rules, but their own ways that they do things. So a lot of the time people define informal economy as the perfect employee because they have to be able to adapt to a situation and do it quickly. So for example, when there's a disaster going on in the United States and we're not getting gas, people will set up along gas routes and sell gas at a higher price to avoid having to sit in line. That's a form of that is a form of an informal economy, and it just shows that hey, they thought on their feet and they did it quickly and they responded quickly. And so that just kind of goes with informal economy can sometimes be defined as the perfect employee, because when you think of an employee, you want someone adaptable and that responds quickly. That's what a formal economy is. And then next, you have to think about how there's 11.7 million undocumented individuals in the United States. So it's hard for them to find jobs. So what they have done is formed informal economy in order to prosper and have a successful life or be able to just live properly. And so they have formed the informal economy. And the sad thing is that people don't notice them until they're gone. So for example, in Alabama, they made immigration laws stricter, and this caused them to be deported, and a lot of construction sites saw a decrease in employees showing up. Well, it turns out that they were immigrants, so Alabama saw a labor shortage. This hindered the economy, and Alabama had to reduce some of their laws they had already put into motion because of the labor shortage. So it just shows that the informal economy keeps the formal economy running in some aspects. And lastly, what I really found was one of the big takeaways from her video is at the end she asked us, who really makes the laws? And are they made to help one group of people or the society as a whole? And when you step back and look at it, as she was explaining informal economy and immigrants and all these aspects, I really had to step back and think, who is making these laws that do harm some people in our society? If you think about it, the United States was formed off of immigrants. So who are we to say you weren't born here, so you can't come here and you can't prosper? The American dream is to come here and prosper, so we're taking that away by trying to hinder their success. And what have they done? They've adapted and made the informal economy, and they're growing. So that's just what I found really interesting from this and my takeaway. Next, we talk about the powers of an informal economy, and he really talks about what he calls System D. And the D comes from a French word, and it means self-reliant, being self-reliant, which is, like I said, being resilient and reliant on their self in order to have that informal economy. So that's why he calls it System D. And he goes and he explains that we call it black market, underground, but in reality all of this is happening openly. They're not hiding what they're doing. I mean, some people are, like the cartel and things like that, but in reality, all of these markets and things that are unregulated by the government are informal economies. So it's not really happening underground or in the black market. Most of informal economy is open and we see it. It's just, it has to happen in order for the economy to keep running. So he also, what I found really cool is he explained informal economy or having a pickle problem. So basically a pickle factory, they send these cucumbers and someone's assigned to pick out the ones that aren't perfect. And so he shows that we're doing the same thing because we focus on the luxury economy, which is, it brings in about $1.5 trillion. But that excludes, this is where he said this is where the little asterisk mark should come in, it excludes 2/3 of the workers of the world. So we're taking 2/3 of the workers out because we're making a 1.5 trillion profit. It doesn't seem necessarily right, and he hits on that, is that 1.8 billion workers are unregulated, which forms the informal economy. So if you were to actually take all of the profits and create them into their own little united front, he created this cool little acronym, but basically if you created their own little country, they would be making $10 trillion, and that could easily overrun the United States and make the world more egalitarian, or make it a more egalitarian world. And what I found, this is where I might go on a tangent, but egalitarian world isn't perfect. It focuses on being equal and everyone having equal rights and everyone being equal, but what about equity? It's not taking a step back to look at where everyone starts. It's just saying, here, let's have everyone equal. No, we need to take back and look at an equitable world, not necessarily an equal world. So that's where things kind of fall off of the point for me, is that yes, they want everyone to be equal, but we need to take a step back and look at what equal means and make it more equitable, and realizing where everyone starts and trying to have a same playing field, because if we're making everyone equal, in the end that might not be the best way of action, and making everyone equitable is probably the better way to go. And then he also explains how big corporations are seeing this informal economy and how it's prospering. So galled sausage rolls are not being sold in actual stores. They give them to people on the streets to sell, and they sell them as snacks, and they realize that if they were to sell them in stores, they wouldn't be sold. But by selling them as snacks from people that they know, they're bringing in a profit. So these big corporations are using this informal economy in order to make profit. And then also how some corporations are selling to high frequency stores, so basically a little not shacks, but areas that are selling, which are informal economies. And basically these high frequency stores are growing, and these companies don't care if they're regulated or registered, because they're making a lot of profit off of them. Then he explains mobile funds and how these certain countries try to create these mobile aspects, like the United States, where they sell you phones and the added payments if you have this much data and all of this information, but it wasn't working. So what they do now is they sell airtime, and they do these at umbrella stands, which are part of the informal economy, and that's 90% of their profit. So in the end, do these big corporations really care if they're regulated or not, or if they're making a profit? And then he talks about piracy, and how piracy, yes, it can be frowned upon, and a lot of companies don't like it. But he went and asked one big shoe company, he didn't disclose their name because they didn't want their name to be out there, but how they use piracy as a market research, because these major brands are looking and seeing, okay, are they selling my item in piracy aspects? Because if they aren't, then we're doing something wrong. And I thought that was really intriguing, because these big companies are using piracy, using this informal economy to benefit from. So it's keeping that formal economy going too. And then in the end, he really hits on is the government blaming the little guy? Because there is corruption in the formal economy as well. Some companies are paying $4,000 to have hush money and not pay certain taxes and do this. So really, in reality, in a formal economy, corruption's occurring and some taxes aren't being paid. So when the government's getting mad about informal economies not paying taxes, are they just blaming the little guy that's probably in poverty, doesn't have certain rights because they're probably an immigrant? Are they just blaming the little guy because formal economies are doing the same thing, and they're not really looking at them very under a microscope like they are with informal economies? And then what I really liked about this one, my key takeaway was, what if what was defined as the free market was defined as a flea market? Would that change everything? Just off of what we define and what we think of a certain definition, would just change our whole aspect of what an informal economy is? And then basically cooperative development is our way forward. So we don't need to we don't need to stop ourselves in moving forward. We need to cooperate with these informal economies and see what they're doing, right? Facts are relative. So basically, facts are not necessarily, they can be reshaped by certain beliefs and certain backgrounds. So facts are relative, so we need to really take a step back and see, okay, really, is this harming us? Is this really what's going on? And then alternate economics, barter, and various currency is important. So having all of this barter and these different currencies coming in is really important to our economy. So that's basically, those three things are going to be the force of global development. And if we take that away and take away informal economy and start taking their rights away, then we're really going to be hindering ourselves. Next are the two articles, and the two articles are what is transformative approach to care and why we need it, and religion as a path to civic engagement. I'm gonna save the religion part because there's some key things I really want to talk about. But with the care aspect, it really talks about how care is connected to duty and love, and how it's seen as a woman's duty, and their compassion is why it should be a woman's responsibility to do this, and that it's their responsibility, and usually it's a child or an elderly's issue, which is a misconception. And basically we need to share the responsibility to reduce the division of labor on genders. So we need to reduce this and really take a step back and look at what's really going on. And then how there's different views on how care is defined, and how those different views change the different laws and agendas that could be put into motion. For example, there's social justice where they believe care should be a given right to all, and then there's social investment where they believe that it is a poverty-related issue and that's their issue. There's transformative where obviously they want to transform certain things, and then conservative views where it's a woman's place to do it. They're a mom, they're the caregiver, and that's that. Cut and dry, it's conservative. And then what I didn't like about this paper at all is that it never stopped to discuss women that do both. Women are able to be the caregiver and the breadwinner in some situations, and a lot of women do it in our society. So I don't understand why that wasn't spoken about. I think that kind of hindered the paper. It really made me not interested in the fact that it wasn't hitting every aspect that could have been spoken of. It was just hitting those stereotypes. So the paper was stereotyping certain people, and it was being very hypocritical in the fact that some women do both, and it didn't stop to talk about that. So I thought that was that really did upset me, and the fact that it didn't stop to take all views out. Going back to the paper, though, it talks about a care economy, how it puts value to care, the care diamond, which is families, state, market, and community, and then how the definition of care is more widely used than the actual care work definition, because it's a broader sense, so it's able to be used in more areas. And basically how the care economy is the preferred way to go because it's a bedrock of economy and society, and how this explains how sometimes the care economy is unrecognized and undervalued because people undervalue care. They think it's just care. Well, it is what it is. It's not that much value, but in reality, these things take time and energy, so they are of value. That's what makes them work. And so their solution was the triple R, which is to recognize, reduce, and redistribute. Recognize who does it and what they're giving up and what they're sacrificing, and that in the end, it does contribute to society. Reduce, don't reduce the care, but reduce the certain time that needs to be allocated. So find ways to save time for these people giving care, and then also reduce the incurred costs that come with this, because there could be cheaper routes to go if we were to stop and reduce certain things for these people and then redistribute. We need to stop and take back those stereotypes and realize that care can be given by all, not just women. So we need to step back and take a look at that. And in the end, what I really took out of this paper is that care can never be replaced, and that social pressures that care needs to be given by women oppress them, And we need to really stop those. We need to take a step back, stop those stereotypes, and realize, yes, care can never be replaced. It's top priority. It's hard to do, and don't undervalue it. We need to stop undervaluing it and realize some women do both. Some women do one. Some women don't do any. But we need to stop stereotyping what care is and who should give it. Next is religion, and this is where it gets. I enjoyed this paper because it talks about how religion is underutilized, and it really opened my eyes to other religions that are coming into America and how they see America. So basically, there's not two ways, but in the paper there was two examples they give about religion, how it can be. Some people see religion as violent and harmful in the sense they use Osama bin Laden and his religion as an example, but other people use religion as hope and a light and how to spread a mission, like Mother Teresa or Martin Luther King Jr. So those are just some examples. But basically, religion is going to link people in space and time. It's going to bring people together and help them understand one another, because they're going to stop and talk to one another in that religion aspect. Different interpretations of different words, different meanings can vary on assumptions and beliefs. So different religions are going to have different beliefs and different assumptions on things. So we need to respect one another's beliefs, because that respecting one another is going to be very important. And then how people that are in religion, they wonder how people that don't have religion know right from wrong. So just kind of explaining why they think religion is important and why some people don't accept religion. In my eyes, because some religions use force tactics. Well, not force tactics, but they really want you to believe what they believe, and if you don't, then leave. And then some religions have initiations or certain aspects that are hard for people to follow, and so they're just very strict. And you have to think about, in this day and age, how people react to that. They want very open aspects and for everything to be open. So some religions have beliefs that are so strict and it's hard to get into. So those people that aren't in it might have their reasons, and we need to respect that as well. But basically, people from other countries that are coming in describe America as ability to challenge everything, to be their own person, have the right to be an individual, the acceptance, the brotherhood, and allowed to go against the grain. Those are just some little things that were taken away from people from other countries. And they talk about how in this country they're allowed to be who they are and express their religion without any repercussions. So it really allows them to be the most, allows them to express themselves in the most religious aspect they can, and that they're willing to. But also how some sacrifices come with that. And basically, as they come to America, they realize that Americans can be workaholics. So sometimes relationships are hindered by that. And also how Americans look at material things more than the spiritual aspect of things, because they just want everything and they want to be the best at everything, so they look at those material things. And then lastly, how when they come to America, they realize how selfish they are, in the sense that they have everything they need in this one area. They don't need to look outside of the United States, so why would you? Other countries don't have that luxury that we have here of bluer skies, fresher air, greener trees, just basic luxuries we take for granted. Other countries don't have that, so they have to worry about everyone around them, because sometimes they're relying on other countries around them. And then how faith communities have powerful resources and tools to encourage civic engagement. And there's one quote that I really liked, is that faith communities in which people worship together are arguably the single most important repository of social capital in America. I found that really interesting, because if you take a step back, these religion-based aspects are like businesses, and they have very important keys in America. And also how they teach political skills, because you're going out and you're talking to people and you're sharing your thoughts and your views, so it's actually helping you gain political skills. And then how every religion has an eye-opening aspect, because you're able to connect in America with different people from all over the world and gain aspects of their certain religion in their certain area, because there might be different ways they do things. And then lastly, they key in on 3 different views that are usually held: that religion should be first and the only one, and that it should be a platform for everyone. So basically, religion should come first, so you define yourself as your religion and then anything else, and it should come first and be a platform to share. Then next, how both religion and politics should go hand in hand, so one should influence the other and vice versa. And then lastly, there should be no religion at all, and you should define yourself as where you come from. So each one has their own aspects that they bring into light. For me, my big takeaway from this paper, or my big argue on this paper, was that they said that certain people believe that if you're a good Christian, you're a good person, and that should just, if you do that, that just flows in with it. I did not agree with that. I know some people that define themselves as a good Christian. They have a different definition of what I think is good, so then I don't necessarily think that they might be a great person. So I found a problem in that sense, that some people stereotype, as we were talking about, and saying that they're a good Christian, that makes them a good person. That's not necessarily true. So we need to take a step back and respect everyone's thoughts and views, and just stop assuming that if you have a certain belief or thing that it's right. No, respect everyone, and then we'll go from there. So just some of the takeaways from the 4 assignments that we had this week. They were very enlightening, and overall I really did like them. I did have some issues that care was not explained with women that do both. Good Christians are good people. Had a problem with that, and I had other issues as well, but just a quick overview of what I thought.